Olivia Monroe and Daniel Keller looked like the perfect couple, young, in love and just married. But within 3 days of their honeymoon, Olivia was found dead at the bottom of a wooded trail, and Daniel's story of a tragic fall began to unravel into something far more chilling. Olivia Monroe had always been the kind of person people remembered. She had a warm, easy smile that made even the shyest children in her kindergarten class feel at ease. In the small town of Ashgrove, everyone knew her name. She lived in the same cozy bungalow she grew up in, taught at the same elementary school she once attended, and volunteered at the community center every summer. Olivia was kind, dependable, and never had a bad word to say about anyone. When she met Daniel Keller, it was as though her story had finally found its missing piece. Daniel arrived in Ashgrove quietly, renting a small house near the edge of town. He told people he had been working construction in Colorado and wanted a slower pace of life. He was tall, good-looking, and spoke with a calm, steady voice. His rough hands and worn boots suggested he was used to hard work, and his polite manners quickly won people over. No one knew much about his past, but in Ashgrove people were trusting. They welcomed him without question. Daniel and Olivia met at a local bookstore. He asked her about a book she was browsing, and they struck up a conversation. From there, things moved quickly. Within weeks, they were seen together at farmers' markets, walking through the park and sitting together at Sunday services. Town gossip followed them wherever they went, but it was the good kind. Whispers about how cute they were together, how happy Olivia looked, how lucky she was to have found someone so kind. Their relationship seemed flawless. Olivia's friends noticed how much more cheerful she was. She started planning trips, redecorating her house, and talking about the future with a new kind of excitement. Daniel was attentive. He brought her lunch at work, left notes on her car, and helped repair things around her home. When he proposed after just 9 months of dating, everyone was thrilled. Olivia said yes without hesitation. She had always dreamed of a simple, love-filled life, and now she believed she had it. Their wedding was held in a garden behind the local church. Strings of lights hung from tree branches, and tables were decorated with wildflowers. It was small but beautiful, attended by close family and friends. Olivia wore her mother's lace wedding dress, and Daniel built the wooden arch they stood under. People cried during their vows and toasted their future with glasses of sparkling cider. No one could stop smiling. The couple looked so in love, so completely at peace. They left for their honeymoon the next morning. Olivia waved goodbye through the window of their rented car, her suitcase packed with cozy sweaters and a journal she planned to write in every day. Their destination was a remote lakeside cabin in Montana, a quiet place far from noise and distraction, perfect for newlyweds looking to enjoy each other's company. It should have been the beginning of their happily ever after. But just 1 week later, news would spread through Ashgrove that Olivia Monroe was dead, and suddenly everyone would start to wonder whether they ever really knew Daniel Keller at all. Black Hollow Lodge sat deep in the forests of northern Montana, hidden by dense pine trees and long stretches of gravel roads. The place was known for its peace and privacy, exactly what newlyweds Olivia and Daniel had been looking for. The key cabin they rented overlooked a quiet, glassy lake that reflected the towering mountains behind it. With no cell service and the nearest town miles away, it was the kind of place where time seemed to slow down. Guests came to disconnect from the world. For Olivia and Daniel, it was meant to be the perfect start to married life. The manager of the lodge remembered them well. Olivia had been friendly and talkative, commenting on the fresh smell of pine in the air and the way the fog curled over the lake in the morning. Daniel was quieter, reserved. He spoke only when spoken to, and often kept his gaze low. Still, they seemed happy enough. Olivia had brought books and a camera. She said she wanted to take pictures of their hikes and write in her journal every night. Daniel had brought fishing gear and tools to carve wooden souvenirs. They appeared prepared for a peaceful week alone. For the first couple of days, everything seemed normal. Olivia was seen walking along the lake trail, sometimes waving at the cabin staff in the distance. The manager recalled her telling him about an owl she spotted near the woods. Daniel kept to himself more, spending hours in the cabin or down by the dock with his fishing rod. They ate meals on the porch and stayed up late with the lights glowing from their windows. Then on the morning of the third day, Daniel came running down the trail shouting for help. His clothes were dirty and his face was pale. He said Olivia had fallen while they were hiking along a rocky ridge behind the cabin. She had slipped, he claimed, and hit her head. By the time rescue workers arrived, it was too late. Olivia's body was lying motionless on the slope, bruised and broken. Her face was bloodied and her arms were twisted in unnatural angles. A large wound on the back of her head suggested a strong, blunt impact. The area where she was found was steep, but not dangerously so. Rangers who examined the site said it was possible to trip, but the injuries didn't match a simple fall. There were signs of something more violent. Olivia's fingernails were chipped, and there was dirt embedded deep in her skin, as if she had been clawing at the ground. Daniel told police he had tried to reach her but couldn't make it down in time. He said he panicked and froze before finally running for help. But one detail stood out. More than 90 minutes had passed between the time he claimed she fell and the time he sought assistance. When asked about the delay, he said he had been in shock. Investigators left the scene with more questions than answers. Something didn't feel right. The perfect honeymoon had turned into a nightmare, and as the sun set behind the mountains that evening, the first shadow of suspicion had begun to form. As investigators dug deeper into Olivia's death, the image of a perfect marriage began to fall apart. What had seemed like a tragic accident started to look more like something far more sinister. The bruises on Olivia's body weren't consistent with a simple fall. Medical examiners found deep contusions on her arms and wrists, suggesting she had been grabbed or restrained. There were scratches on her neck and small cuts on her legs, none of which were explained by the trail where Daniel claimed she fell. More unsettling was the blunt force trauma to the back of her head. It appeared to have been caused by a single powerful strike, not from tumbling down a hillside. Detectives returned to Ashgrove to speak with those who knew Olivia best. Her closest friend, Emma, revealed something that changed the course of the investigation. Just days before the wedding, Olivia had confided in her about Daniel's behavior. She said he had become increasingly moody and unpredictable. One night, he had disappeared without explanation and didn't answer her calls for almost 2 days. When he returned, he acted like nothing had happened. Olivia had considered postponing the wedding, but said she didn't want to embarrass herself or upset anyone. Family members also shared their concerns. Olivia's mother mentioned how Daniel often seemed controlling. He insisted on planning. The honeymoon himself didn't want Olivia using social media, and even discouraged her from talking to her ex-colleagues after she left her teaching job. At the time, these were brushed off as protective gestures. In hindsight, they looked more like signs of isolation and manipulation. Digging into Daniel's past revealed even more troubling information. He had always claimed to have worked construction in Colorado, but his record painted a different picture. Under a different address, there was a sealed file in a neighboring state. Detectives obtained a court order to access the records. What they found was a criminal complaint from 5 years earlier. Daniel had been accused of domestic assault by a former girlfriend. The case was dropped when the woman refused to testify, but the details were chilling. She had told police that Daniel became violent when angry, once throwing a chair across the room during an argument. The report mentioned controlling behavior and threats. The name of the woman was not released, but detectives tried to track her down. Back at the crime scene, forensics uncovered more disturbing signs. The soil where Olivia's body was found had been disturbed, with drag marks leading from a flat area about 20 feet away. Pine needles had been brushed over the spot, but poorly. It looked like someone had tried to cover something up in a hurry. The more the pieces came together, the clearer it became. This wasn't a slip on a trail. Olivia had been moved after she died. At this point, the idea of a tragic accident seemed more and more unlikely. A portrait of a hidden past, controlling behavior and possible abuse began to take shape. Olivia hadn't just been unlucky, she had been in danger. And now, the investigation was shifting toward what really happened on that mountain, who Daniel Keller really was, and what he had planned all along. The deeper investigators looked into Daniel Keller's life, the darker the picture became. While friends and neighbors in Ashgrove had seen him as a quiet, hard-working man, the evidence told a different story. It wasn't just the bruises on Olivia's body or the inconsistencies in Daniel's timeline that raised alarms. It was what detectives found in the weeks leading up to the wedding that revealed a cold, calculated plan. One of the most shocking discoveries came from Daniel's financial records. About 6 weeks before the wedding, he had taken out a life insurance policy on Olivia. The payout was significant, $750,000, with a clause that doubled the amount in the event of accidental death. Olivia's signature appeared on the paperwork, but after a forensic document analyst reviewed it, they suspected forgery. The writing looked too neat, too unlike Olivia's usual hurried scrawl. Her family confirmed she had never mentioned the policy, and no one could find any emails or documents where she had discussed it. To make matters worse, Daniel had listed himself as the sole beneficiary and insisted the policy go into effect immediately, rather than waiting until after the honeymoon, as was common with newlyweds. Investigators also found a disturbing pattern in Daniel's online activity. On his personal laptop, which had been recovered from the cabin, a search history revealed he had been reading articles about head trauma, how to stage a fall, and how life insurance investigations work. Some of the searches were made just days before they left for the trip. He had also visited multiple message boards where users discussed life insurance loopholes and how long it typically takes for payouts after accidental deaths. The case continued to unravel when the insurance agent who processed the policy came forward. He said Daniel had been unusually eager to finalize the paperwork. During their meeting, Daniel had pressed him with questions about when the policy would become active and whether deaths from accidents like hiking falls were covered. The agent thought it was strange at the time, but had chalked it up to over-planning. By this point, detectives had built a timeline that painted a chilling picture. Daniel proposed quickly, rushed the wedding, and arranged the honeymoon to a secluded location without cell service or easy access to help. Every step seemed designed to isolate Olivia, create the appearance of an accident, and make sure no one could intervene. Even the trail where she was found had no security cameras, no nearby cabins, and few visitors that time of year. The motive became clear: money. Daniel had no stable job, carried credit card debt, and had recently defaulted on a car loan. The life insurance policy offered a way out. If Olivia died in an accident, he would walk away with nearly $1 million. But his plan was unraveling quickly. Forensic evidence, financial trails, and a clear digital footprint all pointed in one direction. What had once seemed like a grieving husband's tragic loss was now being exposed as a carefully orchestrated act of murder driven by greed. The truth was coming to light, and it was damning. The trial of Daniel Keller began 6 months after Olivia's death, and by then the quiet town of Ashgrove had become a hub of national attention. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, true crime forums filled with speculation. Locals who once welcomed Daniel with open arms now avoided his name, whispering in disbelief. What had once been a love story celebrated by the community had turned into a chilling example of betrayal and cold-blooded planning. In court, the prosecution laid out a narrative that was hard to dispute. They described Daniel as a manipulator who saw Olivia not as a partner, but as a financial opportunity. They detailed the timeline of their rushed relationship, the secretly filed life insurance policy, and the secluded honeymoon location chosen with precision. They showed the jury Daniel's internet search history, including searches about life insurance fraud, head injuries, and how police determined cause of death. They presented expert testimony from forensic analysts who explained that Olivia's injuries were inconsistent with a fall and more aligned with blunt force trauma from an object like a rock or a heavy flashlight. The most emotional moments came when Olivia's mother and close friend took the stand. Her mother held back tears as she described her daughter's excitement about the wedding and how they had talked just hours before she left for the honeymoon. Her friend Emma repeated what Olivia had told her in confidence, that she was starting to feel uneasy about Daniel, but didn't want to call off the wedding so close to the big day. Her words left the courtroom silent. Daniel's defense team painted a different picture. They argued that the entire case was based on assumptions, not facts. They claimed Olivia's death was a horrible accident and that Daniel's behavior afterward was the result of panic and trauma. They questioned the reliability of the forensic evidence and suggested the bruises could have come from her fall or from Daniel trying to carry her. They also tried to downplay the life insurance policy, claiming Olivia had known about it and that many couples take out similar policies as a precaution. But the most damning blow came when the insurance agent testified. He confirmed that Daniel had pushed to activate the policy immediately and asked specific, unusual questions about accidental death payouts. He recalled Daniel's odd tone, too calm, too focused on logistics. That, combined with the forged signature and search history, was enough to tip the scales. The jury deliberated for less than a day. The verdict was unanimous: guilty of first-degree murder. When the sentence was read, Daniel showed no visible emotion. He was given life in prison without the possibility of parole. In the months that followed, Olivia's family established the Olivia Monroe Foundation, dedicated to helping women recognize signs of coercive control and hidden abuse. Her story became a warning about rushing into relationships, ignoring red flags, and how danger can sometimes wear a friendly face. Ashgrove never forgot what happened. The cabin in Montana was eventually shut down, and the people who once believed in the fairy tale of Olivia and Daniel were left to face a much harsher truth. Sometimes love is a mask for something far more dangerous.